If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The NFL trade deadline always brings chaos, but this year, it's been a whirlwind unlike anything we've seen in recent memory. Teams that were expected to sit tight have made bold moves. Contenders are loading up for playoff runs, and rebuilders are making sneaky plays for the future. Amid all the headline-grabbing blockbusters, like the Colts shocking everyone by prying away Sauce Gardner from the Jets in exchange for 2 first-rounders and receiver Adonai Mitchell, one of the quieter deals of the day came out of Cleveland. It wasn't front-page material compared to some of the bigger splashes, but it's one that tells us a lot about where the Browns stand and how the front office is approaching the second half of the season. The Browns decided to part ways with one of their more recent acquisitions, trading backup edge rusher Joe Tryon-Shoyinka to the Chicago Bears, along with a 2026 7th-round pick, in exchange for a 2026 6th-rounder. It's a small move on paper, but it fits perfectly into the mosaic of what General Manager Andrew Berry has been building: strategic, opportunistic, and always with an eye on the margins. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's time in Cleveland barely had time to take root. Signed in the offseason to a 1-year, $4.75 million deal, most of it guaranteed, Tryon-Shoyinka arrived as a low-risk, medium-reward pickup. The Browns' pass rush depth chart was already one of the most stacked in the league, anchored by perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate Myles Garrett. Alongside Garrett were emerging names like Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, and Cameron Thomas, all of whom had been making strides and earning consistent reps. That meant that Tryon-Shoyinka, a former first-round pick who never quite broke out during his time in Tampa Bay, had to fight for every snap. Over the first 8 games of the season, he only managed to get on the field for 31 defensive snaps, barely enough to leave a mark or show what he could offer. Outside of a few flashes, like a pressure or 2 in the game against the Steelers, his impact was minimal. When you have a front 4 as deep and talented as Cleveland's, that's not necessarily an indictment of his ability. It's more of a reflection of how crowded that room is. So when the opportunity came to flip him for a modest draft upgrade, Cleveland didn't hesitate. From the Browns' perspective, this was pure business. They turned a player on an expiring deal who was hardly seeing the field into a slightly better draft asset. That may not sound glamorous, but those are the kind of small, methodical moves that add up over time. This front office has built a reputation for being deliberate and disciplined, for not letting sunk costs dictate roster decisions. They aren't the type to hold on to a player just because he's new or because of what they paid him in March. They constantly reassess, adapt, and make tweaks at the edges. It's not flashy, but it's smart. The deal also makes sense when you look at where the Bears are right now. Chicago, sitting at 5-3 and eyeing a potential playoff push, just suffered a major blow with the loss of defensive end Dayo Odeyingbo, who tore his Achilles and is done for the season. That left a glaring hole in their pass rush, a unit that was already inconsistent at generating pressure. So the Bears were desperate for reinforcements, and with the deadline looming, the options were limited. Enter Tryon-Shoyinka. He's not going to single-handedly transform the Bears' defense, but he's a capable rotational player who can provide snaps right away. At 6 feet 5 inches and 265 pounds, with good length and athleticism, he fits the mold of the kind of edge defenders head coach Matt Eberflus loves to develop. In Chicago, he'll likely get more opportunities, more snaps, and maybe even a chance to revive his career in a defense that's quietly been improving week by week. For Cleveland, meanwhile, the move underscores just how much faith they have in the group they already have up front. Myles Garrett remains the cornerstone, the nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. Alex Wright has quietly become one of the more underrated young edge rushers in the league, showing both power and discipline. Isaiah McGuire continues to flash in limited action, and Cameron Thomas has provided reliable depth. It's a unit built not just on star power, but on rotation and chemistry. Defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz loves having waves of pass rushers to throw at offenses, keeping them guessing and off balance. Tryon-Shoyinka was simply the odd man out in a group that doesn't have much room for redundancy. Beyond the immediate roster shuffle, this trade also speaks volumes about Cleveland's draft capital situation heading into next offseason. The Browns have been quietly stockpiling picks, and they're in one of the better positions in the league in terms of future assets. They currently hold all of their own selections for next year, plus an extra first-round pick, 2 additional fifth-rounders, 3 extra sixths, and 2 extra sevenths. That's a lot of flexibility for a team that's still competitive right now, but also thinking strategically about its long-term window. Moves like flipping a fringe player for a pick upgrade might seem trivial in the moment, but when you stack enough of them, they can make a real difference when draft day rolls around. It's how smart teams operate, always adding, never standing still. What's also fascinating here is the contrast in philosophy between the Browns and the Bears. Cleveland is in a spot where every roster decision is about refinement, about squeezing value from every corner of the depth chart. Chicago, on the other hand, is in the midst of trying to solidify an identity. Their defense, once a point of pride, has been through years of turnover and inconsistency. But this season, they've been showing signs of turning the corner. Adding someone like Shoyinka isn't about making headlines. It's about patching a hole and giving their locker room a little more stability after a tough injury blow. For a team still building a foundation, sometimes that's just as valuable as swinging for the fences. From a player's perspective, this trade could be exactly what Shoyinka needed. In Cleveland, he was buried behind one of the best defensive lines in football. In Chicago, he'll get a fresh start, a real opportunity to play meaningful snaps, and a coaching staff that will likely tailor his role to his strengths. When you've been on the outside looking in for weeks, 31 snaps can feel like a lifetime of frustration. Now, he'll have the chance to prove himself again, to show that he can still be a productive edge rusher in this league. Sometimes, all a player needs is the right situation, and maybe Chicago is that place for him. As for Cleveland fans, it's understandable if some barely noticed the move. Amid the swirl of trade deadline noise, rumors about potential deals involving Shelby Harris, Jerome Ford, and other veterans, the Shoyinka trade could easily get lost in the shuffle. But again, these are the subtle moves that reveal a team's mindset. The Browns didn't panic. They didn't overreact to injuries or pressure from the outside. They stayed true to their identity as a franchise that values discipline, efficiency, and long-term sustainability. And that's something worth appreciating, especially in a league where impulsive trades and short-term thinking can sink franchises. Meanwhile, around the league, the trade deadline frenzy continues to reshape the landscape. With big names like Jacoby Myers, Rashid Shaheed, and Jalen Phillips all on the move, teams are making their intentions clear, some going all in, others resetting for the future. The Colts landing Sauce Gardner might be the shocker of the year, signaling their intent to retool their defense around an elite secondary piece. But in the shadows of those blockbuster deals, small trades like Cleveland's can have ripple effects that last beyond this season. Maybe one of those extra sixth-rounders becomes a key special teamer, a developmental player, or even a late-round gem who turns into a contributor. That's the beauty of these quieter deals. They don't make headlines, but they can build foundations. As the dust settles, Cleveland comes out of the deadline as one of the more balanced teams in the AFC. They didn't sell off core pieces, nor did they make reckless splashes. They stayed the course, trusting in their current roster while fine-tuning the edges. For a team still in the playoff race, that's the mark of maturity. Every move matters, every roster spot counts, and every pick, no matter how small, has potential value. The Browns might not have made a headline-stealing trade, but they made a smart one. And in the NFL, sometimes that's the difference between chasing the pack and quietly building a winner. So, while the rest of the football world debates the blockbuster moves, don't sleep on this one. The Browns just did what good teams do. They found a way to get better at the margins. Joe Shoyinka gets a new start. The Bears fill a hole. Cleveland adds another draft chip. Everyone wins, and that's the kind of under-the-radar transaction that can end up paying off big when we look back months from now. It's not flashy, it's not dramatic, but it's smart football, and that's exactly the kind of move that shows why the Browns are becoming one of the most well-run organizations in the league. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your seats because the NFL world is buzzing this morning with one of the most unexpected shakeups we've seen in recent years. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, or even just someone who follows the league casually, you're going to want to sit down for this one. In a move that has left analysts, insiders, and fans completely stunned, the Browns have pulled off a lightning-fast, whirlwind trade that is shaking the foundation of their offensive line. WYATT, TELLER, and BITONIO, two of the most reliable, battle-tested linemen in the league, are reportedly out of Cleveland, leaving a massive hole and a trail of questions in their wake. That's right, a trade that nobody saw coming has reportedly sent these cornerstone players to a new, yet-to-be-confirmed destination, and the rumor mill is absolutely on fire. For those who may not be intimately familiar with the magnitude of this move, let's break it down. WYATT, TELLER, a guard whose physicality and relentless drive have made him a cornerstone of the Browns' interior line, has been a consistent force since joining the team. Known for his brute strength, his ability to pull on outside runs, and his downright nasty streak in pass protection, TELLER has been a player who opponents both respect and fear. He's not just a lineman. He's a personality on the field, someone who can swing the momentum of a game with a single block. And BITONIO, well, if TELLER is the powerhouse, BITONIO is the technical masterclass. The left guard has been one of the most consistent and technically sound linemen in the league, praised for his agility, intelligence, and leadership. Together, they formed a duo that gave the Browns one of the most formidable guard pairings in football. Now, to think both could be traded away in the same swift, almost cinematic move, is something that's leaving fans in utter disbelief. The details of the trade are still emerging, and let's be clear, nothing has been fully confirmed by official team channels at this time, but multiple sources close to the situation suggest that the deal is imminent or already done behind closed doors. The speculation is wild, ranging from blockbuster exchanges involving multiple draft picks to more subtle, strategic moves aimed at restructuring the offensive line for the long term. Imagine this: a team willing to take on two high-caliber linemen, immediately transforming their own offensive front and signaling a push for dominance that many didn't see coming. The possibilities are endless, and the rumor mill is running at full throttle. Could this be a strategic gamble by Cleveland to clear cap space? Or are they looking to build a completely new identity on the offensive line? Only time will tell, but one thing is clear. This is the kind of move that makes the NFL offseason so intoxicating, so unpredictable, and so utterly fascinating for fans like us. Sources hint that part of the reasoning behind Cleveland's decision might be tied to the evolving philosophy of the team's front office. The Browns have been under pressure to find the right balance between veteran experience and young, dynamic talent, and while TELLER and BITONIO represent elite stability, they also carry significant contracts. Could this trade be a high-stakes maneuver to free up cap space for a quarterback extension, for star receivers, or for a completely different restructuring of the team's core? The intrigue deepens because this isn't just a swap. It's a seismic signal that the Browns are willing to make bold, almost audacious moves to chase a long-term vision. Some insiders are already speculating that this might be the beginning of a multi-year offensive overhaul. And if that's true, the ripple effects of this trade will be felt across the league for years to come. And let's talk about the teams potentially involved because, as with any blockbuster trade, the implications extend far beyond Cleveland. Rumors are circulating that a few franchises with glaring weaknesses in their interior line might be in the mix, desperate to inject some veteran firepower into a unit that has struggled under pressure. The logic is simple: add TELLER and BITONIO, and suddenly a previously shaky offensive line transforms into a fortress, capable of protecting the quarterback and opening lanes for a dynamic backfield. The reaction on social media has been a mix of shock, excitement, and disbelief. Fans are debating endlessly, with some praising the potential new home for these linemen as an instant upgrade, and others condemning Cleveland for letting go of arguably the best guard duo in the league. The chatter is relentless, the speculation is intense, and the buzz is growing by the minute. This isn't just a trade. It's the kind of move that dominates sports talk shows, Reddit threads, and Twitter debates for weeks on end. Of course, the human side of this story can't be ignored. TELLER and BITONIO are not just athletes. They are leaders, teammates, and personalities deeply embedded in the Browns culture. Their departure, whether temporary or permanent, will undoubtedly leave an emotional impact on the locker room. Fans have long admired the grit, determination, and camaraderie these two have brought to Cleveland, and now that chapter is closing. There's a narrative brewing here about loyalty, legacy, and the ever-shifting dynamics of professional football. How do teammates cope with the sudden exit of such influential figures? How will the team restructure its leadership and chemistry moving forward? These are the kind of questions that make rumors like this so compelling because they extend beyond the XS and OS and hit at the very heart of what makes sports so captivating. The timing of this trade is another fascinating element. NFL trades, particularly high-profile ones, usually occur with deliberate pacing, but the speed at which this one reportedly came together is astounding. Industry insiders are calling it a lightning strike, a deal executed with surgical precision and absolute secrecy. There are whispers of frantic phone calls between general managers, hurried negotiations over draft picks, and teams scrambling to respond before the news became public. If these rumors hold true, this is one of those trades that will be dissected and analyzed for months, both for the boldness of its execution and for its potential to reshape team dynamics across the league. Finally, let's consider the broader NFL landscape. Moves like this are more than just team-specific. They signal trends, ambitions, and shifts in strategy that reverberate across the league. When a team trades two elite guards in a sudden, almost shocking maneuver, it sends a message to every competitor. Nothing is guaranteed, and no roster is untouchable. Other teams will be forced to reconsider their own line compositions, salary cap allocations, and future planning. Analysts will pore over tape, social media will explode with speculation, and fans will wake up every day wondering what could happen next. It's the kind of narrative that makes the NFL feel alive, unpredictable, and endlessly thrilling. And for the Browns, whether this gamble pays off or not, it's a story that will define their offseason, their draft strategy, and potentially their trajectory for years to come. So, there you have it, folks. WYATT TELLER and Joel BITONIO, two pillars of the Browns' offensive line, are reportedly on the move in a trade that has sent shockwaves across the NFL. The rumor mill is ablaze, speculation is at a fever pitch, and fans everywhere are holding their breath. Where will they land? How will this reshape Cleveland's strategy? And what does this mean for the balance of power across the league? One thing is certain. This is the kind of move that makes the NFL offseason absolutely addictive. And if these rumors prove true, we are witnessing a moment that will be remembered for years. Keep your eyes peeled, because this story is far from over, and the next chapter could come sooner than anyone expects. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!